Hi, Lori. How are you? Morning. Got it. Good. I'll make sure everything's kind of squared up. Perfect. You got enough room?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
All right.
Perfect. We're good? You guys good?
Yep.
Cool. Well, it's been an interesting 2.5 weeks.
Has it only been that long?
Yeah,
Has it been like,
feels a little longer, I would say.
yeah, it went fast.
It went fast.
Mhm.
Guilty. Did you expect that?
No.
Not at all.
I mean, obviously I knew that's a possibility. Yeah. So it was a bit of a surprise, actually.
What made you surprised that it went that direction?
I mean, I shouldn't be surprised knowing what I know about the judicial system and how it works. So it still was. Just you were there, so
It was.
from what happened, I was surprised at that outcome.
And we didn't really see any noticeable reaction from you or really anybody else in the courtroom when that verdict was read. When you did hear it, what was your first thought?
So it's not a secret that I had a near-death experience, right? I talked about it at my sentencing. And when you have that experience and you go to the other side of the veil, you understand, you have a life review. You see your whole life, everything that happened to you. And you see what's important and what's unimportant. And you see what matters in life. So what matters in life is how you react to things, how you treat other people, and the love that you give while you're here on earth. And that's it.
So you felt not
That's it.
reacting was the best call in that moment?
No, I felt like I should have joy in every situation, which is what I was taught to do in heaven.
So you had a list of witnesses you could call, your parents, your sister, even your brother again, but you chose not to. And I think you resting without calling anybody was a surprise to everybody who had been following the trial. What went into that decision?
So did you read any of the motions that were filed precluding my sister and my mother from speaking about certain subjects?
Some of them, yes.
And then did you read any of the motions that were precluding me from asking certain questions to the law enforcement?
Yes.
So, and did you see all the people that they struck from my witness list?
Yes.
Okay, so
Who did that leave you with?
That's what I'm saying. In the judicial system, the way that it works is they really don't let you put on a defense. They just don't. They don't let you put on your defense the way that you want to present it. So you think, and this is what I thought too, because you're naive when you go into it, right? Like, I didn't know, as 46 years old the first time I was ever arrested, I didn't know how the system worked, I didn't know any of that. So you think they get to tell their side and you get to tell your side. And you think that's the way that it works, and it doesn't. It doesn't work that way at all. And in a high-profile case like this, there's money and jobs and things that are going on way behind the scenes that nobody sees. I mean, what you saw, it's even interesting. So think about this. What you saw, how many different things did you see than what the jury saw? Because you see the arguing of motions. You see all the things that the prosecutor's saying behind the scenes, and they don't get to even see any of that. So it's the way that the system works, and it's what it does. And so, yeah, they precluded me basically from having a defense. They precluded you from talking about the things that would be most important to prove your case. So if the judge precludes all those things, what are you supposed to get up and say?
I guess in your case, though, you could have testified.
That's true.
Why not?
So there's a lot of reasons. The way that the system works, if I were to really explain, because now being behind the scenes of the system, I mean, obviously you see things differently, but it's very interesting what the state is allowed to do. So if you put on any kind of a case, okay, any kind of defense, one person, like one detective, say the detective Moffat that they didn't put on the stand, right? I really wanted to put him on the stand.
You wanted to cross-examine him.
Well, he was the case agent for the first, year and a half or something like that. So he's the one that talked to everybody. He's the one that found out all the information. And they didn't put him on at all. And I think that was because of the exhibits that I was proposing were mainly of him, right? So they didn't put him on at all because they didn't want me to cross-examine him on the stand. So if I put up anybody, if I put up one person, then they get to put on a whole nother case after that. They get to put on a rebuttal case after that. So they can, and I think this is like the MO of the state. So this is how trial works. Like they put on their case, and then you put on your case, and then they can go back and put on a whole nother case. Like they kind of save it for the end. And so there's strategy involved, and there's, I think of couples retreat. I'm a big movie buff, so I think of things, and I think I've studied yoga and Tai Chi and the art of war. I mean, that's kind of like, it's crazy what really is going on behind the scenes.
So you didn't want Trina K to get back up there and present a lot more after if you were to have testified?
I didn't do it for that purpose. I just knew that that is a possibility.
We were talking to the jurors after the verdict, and they had a lot of interesting things to say. One of them...
I would be really interested to hear what they said. I didn't get to hear any of that, so I've been sleeping.
So one of them thought not guilty until closing arguments. Do you feel like you did not do enough in closing arguments to have convinced that juror to keep that decision?
I don't think that it was my job really to convince them. I was just trying to present it from my side,
A lot of them had the same questions that we thought. So just to kind of bring you into what affected them the most.
Sure. I'd love to hear that, actually.
So all of them sat there wondering, where is Tylee? She's in the body camera footage.
Right.
Why is she not testifying? And they felt that there was a part of the story missing, which they didn't know about your previous convictions, but they were correct.
Did they not know?
They did not know. According to them, they did not know. And they shouldn't have known based on how it should.
They shouldn't have known. And it was weird, right? Because it seemed like Trina K was so talking around Tylee without talking directly about her, So I'm sure that was confusing.
Would you have wanted the jurors to know that she's dead?
I was precluded from giving out that information. So that's the way the law works, right? We were both precluded, so that made it very awkward, don't you think?
But let's say you weren't. Would you have preferred the jurors to know that Tylee was dead?
I don't know that. I think they obviously did know.
Well, they said they learned afterwards. So as they were coming out, people were saying, you can now look up the case. So they were Googling things, and they're seeing all these prior convictions.
So you didn't think that happened during deliberations? Like maybe one person informed all of them that was the case?
Obviously, you and I won't know.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know. I'm not saying I was there.
But they were upset when they found out that Tylee and JJ are both dead. For you, seeing Tylee on the video, what was that like for you? You were convicted in her death, but we're seeing video of her in that courtroom.
Well, I understand where Tylee is in heaven. I know what she's doing, and I know where she is. And so it's been almost 6 years since she passed away. This is the catalyst, right? What happened with her and Charles was the catalyst of her killing herself. So I was precluded from talking about that. I was precluded from bringing that up.
But the detectives obviously don't say that she killed herself.
I'm aware of what the detectives say, but they weren't there.
So that leads me to my next question on this. So I know last time you said that there was a domino effect in our last interview that was kind of the cause or the result of all of these deaths of people. And when I asked you about it more, you said, I'll save that for next time. So here we are. What do you mean by domino effect? And was the catalyst of that Chad Daybell?
So because I still have my appeals and another trial coming up, right? I don't want to really necessarily get into the details of it, but yeah, it was a domino effect, one that I was not prepared for. Like what happened with Charles that day, between Tylee and Charles that day, had been building for months. They had been getting into these fights, and I had to separate them physically twice. Tylee and I went and stayed in a hotel twice to get away because she was pushing his buttons like only a teenager can, and when that happened that day, that's what I was precluded from discussing. I was precluded from talking about what led up to this incident, why it was so intense in those few minutes, why things happened like they happened. And so it was hard for me. It's hard for me to not be able to talk about that. Hard for me to be able to say what actually happened. It's so hard because you think you're going to be able to get up and just tell what happened, and that's not the way the law works. It's not the way it's written. So nobody gets to do that. You know, I'm in here with these women that have these family tragedies too, and they're family tragedies. Things happen, and they're precluded from telling the story. You're precluded from telling that in court, and the jury never gets to see that. So, and you see all the things that the jury doesn't get to see. I mean, they get very limited information. I mean, you saw how everything I tried to say, Trina K's like, she can't say that, she can't say that, she can't say that, you know. And so, not being a lawyer, you know, and trying this, you know, myself, like, I was always surprised, like, okay, well, I guess you can't really tell your side of the story ever. Like, I guess that's not how it works.
I know with our interview, you referenced a family tragedy, and that was something that we heard in your opening and your closing arguments.
Right, absolutely.
But that phrase bothered a lot of people who know what happened in a totality, right?
Who knows what happened in totality besides me?
Well,
Who was there?
I think everybody who's seen that you've been convicted of now
Wrongly
four
convicted.
deaths.
Wrongly convicted, yes.
So if you say that you were wrongly convicted of the deaths of your children,
Yes.
who killed them?
So you know from my interview with Colby that I told him what really happened, and so that's just what happened.
Can you put that into your own words here?
I could, but I would probably save that for my next trial. So
I want to ask you a little bit about the testimony. Obviously, this was your first time. I mean, you're not an attorney.
great.
What was that like cross-examining people for you, getting up there and having to be able to put into words your questions properly? You got a lot of objections and kind of had to revamp there on the spot. Right. What was that like for you?
It's harder than it looks.
Sure.
It's harder than it looks. It's stressful in a way. Like your brain has to be going 100 miles an hour. You know, I've been in jail for over 5 years, almost 6 years, so you don't really have to use your brain very much in jail.
That's
So
right.
it was like mathlete or something, you know, you're having to think all the time. So it was interesting. It was different than I thought it was going to be. It's difficult.
What was it like facing your brother for the first time in years?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, it all happened so fast. I'm still really kind of processing. I mean, yesterday was the first day I slept in like 3 weeks or so. So today I slept into a little bit, and I knew you guys were coming. I was like, I better get up because, you know, I knew you guys were coming. But it was different than I thought.
Did you think that your interactions with Adam were positive between the two of you in the courtroom?
I didn't really think anything at the time. I was trying to be in just lawyer mode and kind of do my job at the time. You know, it's hard because you have, being your own attorney, right? Mm-hmm. You're obviously emotional, and women were obviously more emotional than the men who get up and do it. But I tried to mostly be in attorney mode and try to stick to that.
Well, and that's an interesting point, because I think the difference that we saw with you versus if you had an attorney was sometimes there were personal aspects. For example, the green chili chicken enchiladas. That became a huge part of this that I don't think anybody had on their bingo card that was going to be part of this trial. But obviously an attorney would not have started going into that. Why bring that up, and what was that interaction between you and Adam like?
So, I don't know. I mean, it was different when it was up there with him because, you know, you've known him your whole life. You know, I was going to come in and say, you know, I'm funny. I'm always doing movie lines. Our whole family is like that. We're big on movie lines. Like, Summer and I will text back and forth in total movie lines without any words ever that are our own, you know, just quoting back and forth. And so I wanted to come in and ask Adam, who is Ernest T. Watson? And see what his reaction would be. Because there's no way he couldn't laugh, you know.
No, but he seemed annoyed on the stand.
Yeah, well, he would laugh because that was the name that he called himself when we used to play school when we were little growing up. That was like his nerdy name for school when we played school. So I thought that would be funny. But I was trying to be, I mean, it's obviously a serious situation, but it's hard with my own family to be serious because we're really a joking family, and so.
Would you call you and Adam estranged though now?
Not really necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah.
That kind of the personal part of this, I want to touch on a little bit more of that in the testimony. So it seemed from a totality standpoint that some of the testimony that bothered you the most was talking about Charles dating other women, specifically with Nancy Jo Hancock, but you also referenced it in your cross-examination of Detective Duncan. Why did that aspect bother you so much?
I don't think it bothered me that much. I think it surprised me because I wasn't aware of any of that until we got the discovery.
You did not know he was dating other women?
No.
But you were having the affair with Chad Daybell, so how does that
You can
work?
say affair, but Chad was really just my best friend.
At the time?
Yes.
But then you got married a few months later.
Later, correct.
So you were just friends, according to you, with Chad before Charles' death.
Correct.
And then only romantic things started after Charles' death.
Correct.
Do you still to this day believe that Charles was a dark spirit, a possessed spirit named Ned?
That's a whole thing that has been way misconstrued.
Can
so.
you clear it up?
Probably not in the 5 minutes we have left.
Obviously, I have to ask, right? Because so much centered around the religion part of this, including these Nephi texts. The Nephi texts, I think, became possibly the crux of this trial, and it also was what affected the jurors most. They felt that some of those text messages between you and Alex were some of the most damning evidence in this.
Is that what they're saying now?
That's what they're saying now.
Interesting.
So how do you describe the Nephi texts?
So, yeah, they've been totally and completely misconstrued. So I explained that somewhat in my closing. That's their job. So the prosecution, the state, they're not there, right? They receive all this information, and then they make up a story that goes along with whatever information that they have, right? They make it up. It's a made-up story. They weren't there. They didn't experience it, so they have no idea. They have to make up a story, and then they have to stick to it. And then they put that out to the media, and then they put their narrative out, and then they stick to their narrative. So you've heard this for 5 years, but it's very misconstrued.
So what is it?
So when you're speaking spiritually to someone else who understands spiritual things, so say Chad, for instance, right? Mm-hmm. Chad had a near-death experience. He's had 3, actually. I had a near-death experience. We both went to heaven. We both had that experience. So what bonded us is it's a very lonely place to have that kind of knowledge and have no one to talk to about it in your life that understands that. And so when someone else understands that and you're speaking spiritually, we weren't speaking of anything on earth. We weren't speaking of anything that was happening here. We're speaking of things that are happening in the spirit world. So anybody that's going to read any text of yours, it's going to be way over their head in the sense that they hadn't had those experiences. So they have nowhere to put them.
So what does be like Nephi mean?
Be courageous, be brave, have perseverance.
And why did you have to be brave in that situation? What were you referencing then to be brave about?
So Adam and Charles and Brandon were plotting against me. My sister was worried about it. My mom was telling me about it. I didn't really realize it. I was in the middle of taking care of kids with special needs, a daughter with chronic illness, and a son with special needs. So if you know anything about kids with autism, it's 24 hours a day. And I was busy mom. They were like, oh, this is weird. Adam came into town and he's with Charles and you haven't talked to him and we need to let you know there's something going on. Maybe you could come stay at my house. My sister had that whole thing. The thing is, come stay at my house. I can't pick up JJ and go stay at someone else's house. It ruins his routine.
So you were referring to the intervention?
What they call an intervention. Now I don't believe that's what it was at all.
What did you believe it was?
I think they have other plans completely.
So when Charles died, why did you guys wait 47 minutes to call 911? That became a huge part
I
of
didn't
this
wait
trial.
any time. I didn't wait any time.
Well, I guess you didn't call at all.
Because
Alex called.
That's right. It was his responsibility in my mind that he took over and was handling that situation. I was getting the kids out of danger.
Do you think he should have called sooner?
Absolutely.
You do?
Yeah.
You do.
I think he probably freaked out. Charles and Alex were friends for years. Alex lived with us for 6 months in 2018, and he and Charles would hang out all weekend and they'd go do stuff together. And Charles loved Alex and Alex loved Charles. This just happened this day the way that it happened, and it was a tragedy. Alex was probably freaked out as I was of the whole situation. So I don't know why he did what he did, and he's not here for me to ask him anymore.
Do you regret representing yourself in this trial?
No.
Why?
It's for the same reasons I told you before about getting a speedy trial.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing that for all the women in here that have been sitting here for so many years, you know, and I told you, like, I wouldn't expect attorneys to be able to do that. They want more time, you know. So, you know, I'll continue to go through the motions, and, you know, we have another trial coming up in a couple of weeks. We have lots to do for that trial, and preparing and getting ready, and maybe some of those things will be cleared up in this trial. You know, they filed a motion that they're going to bring in everything now.
Yeah, I saw that.
And so if the judge allows that, which...
Who knows?
What do you think he's going to do?
Well, yeah, I mean, we don't know.
You tell me what you think he's going to do, Brianna.
Well,
you think he's going to say, nope, no 404B, we're not going to let any of that stuff in? I mean...
The judge was relatively patient with you, I thought, throughout the trial.
Did
you feel
you?
that? Well,
No,
I
did
think he
not
was
feel like
helping
that.
you. One more. Given that you were just found guilty, and I know you don't like the jail conditions, would you change your plea in Brandon's trial?
No.
Why?
Will I change it? No. Because I didn't do anything. So no, you have to, there comes a point when you just have to stand up, regardless of what they do to you, right? Like, this will have zero effect on me in eternity. Zero effect on me in eternity. And I already know that. So I'm here to help whatever women I can help, and here be courageous and stand up for themselves, because it's a system that bogs you down. These women are bogged down. They've been here for years. They've been treated horrible in this situation, and they've been treated horrible by their own attorneys. You know, they've been treated like, okay, they've been here for 8, 9, 10 years waiting to go to trial, when the conditions at the prison, even if they got convicted, are a million times better than they are right here. So I'm helping them to stand up and be courageous. You know, if you didn't do it, you just get up and say you didn't do it. If they convict you because that's the way the law works, then they're going to convict you because that's the way the law works. It is designed to convict you. It is not designed to acquit you. And I want you to look this up, and I want you to tell me next time we talk, how many people in Maricopa County in a murder case get acquitted. I want to know the percentage. Get acquitted.
I'll look it up.
Because I bet you it's like less than 1%.
It's not often that we see it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate your time.